Miss Crosby, I think you get the early bird award.
I know. I was at breakfast this morning, told everybody I went on a Zoom meeting and I was the only one on the call. Just so ridiculous.
It's better to be
And
early than late.
Yeah, that was funny.
You made me panic for a moment. I was like, oh crap, did I get it wrong?
No, that was me, all me.
Good evening.
How are you, Gus?
Good. How are you doing, Mr. McDonald?
Doing well. Thank you for asking.
Hi, Gene. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Hi, Joe.
Hello, and thank you.
All right, I've got 501. It appears that we have a majority to talk. So we'll get started. I'll call the meeting to order. Operation and administrative. We'll start off with roll call. I am present. Jaime Salgado, I don't see him just yet. Paul Arena.
Here.
Dorothy Red. I don't see her just yet. Joe Hoffman.
Present.
John Butita.
Here.
And Gene Crosby.
Here.
We have a quorum. Patrick, is there anybody signed up for a public comment this evening?
No, sir.
All right, I shall omit that portion. Moving on to item D, resolution awarding bids for paper goods, liners, and chemical products. And I so move. Can I have a second, please? Ms. Crosby and Mr. Hoffman second. The item is before us. Are you prepared to talk about this, Mr. Thompson? Okay.
Yes, I'll introduce the subject matter, and then our purchasing director is also online, I hope. And so this is a 5-year contract for paper goods, liners, and chemical products. It was put out for bid. It's a 5-year contract. There's an initial 2 years, and then the allowance for 3 1-year options for renewal. The contract pricing may be adjusted annually after the 2nd year. And there's an attachment to this executive summary that spells out the pricing for it. So our facilities director, Sean Franks, and our purchasing director, Ann Johns, reviewed, I think we had 10 bids. Initially, 2 were eliminated because they did not meet specs. And so there were 8 qualified bidders. They are recommending the award to 3 separate companies, Harder Corp, ProSource Distributors, and Medline Industries from Northfield. Harder and ProSource are both local firms. And the pricing is attached to the document in your packet. So if you have any questions specifically, I think Ann Johns is probably on the call. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. I don't see Ms. Johns on just yet. Is there anybody who has any discussion for this item?
This is Paul Arena. I do have a question.
Mr. Arena, go ahead.
Thank you. So if the prices could be adjusted, is there some type of termination language if we're not satisfied with the price adjustment that we can get out of the contract?
Yeah, well, specific language, I would have to ask Dave Kurlinkus, but most, if not all, the contracts we sign, there's an out provision built into the contract. So I'm certain that there is, but I would have to defer to the state's attorney's office or Ann Johns.
Okay, I would want to confirm that before it comes to the floor, if I were going to vote yes to it. But thank you.
Yes.
Has my office been asked to review this, Mr. Thompson?
I would have to defer to Ann Johns on that.
Okay, because we certainly would be prepared to answer Mr. Arena if it's sent over for us to review, but I don't know if anyone's been asked to review it, Mr. Arena.
Okay, thank you, State's Attorney Height Ross.
Looking, Mr. Kalinkas, you took yourself off mute. Did you have anything to add?
Do not. I personally have not seen this contract, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't sent to either Attorney Leclerc or Attorney Gilberti.
Well, if I may interrupt, I don't think this is a contract. It's a resolution awarding bids. So I think a contract or an agreement will most likely follow if the board approves the award of bids. But I'm not sure why Ms. Johns isn't on the call. She may have thought it was that we're starting at 5:30, but that's just my understanding of it.
Any other discussion for Mr. Thompson?
I'll clarify that for you, Paul, before it comes to the county board. And I'm sure that any contract or agreement that we sign with these three companies will have a provision in the contract for breaking or getting out of the contract.
Okay, thank you very much.
But I'll verify that.
Any other discussion on this matter? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Motion passes. Next item is a resolution awarding data backup, recovery, and intelligence systems agreement, and I so move. May I have a second, please? Ms. Crosby seconds. The item is now before us. Mr. Gus, are you here to speak to this?
Yes, sir. Myself and our Deputy CIO, Dan Majors. So if you'd like me to go, I can.
Sure.
Okay. Dan's going to share his screen for just a couple of moments. And so I'd like to look at current reality and then the reality we want to move to for doing data backup and recovery for the County of Winnebago. Our current reality is that we run 3 servers with almost a petabyte of storage to back up all the file shares, databases, and everything associated with data processing for the elected appointed officials and department heads. And so we call this a legacy process we use. It's your classic take the data off the hard drives and then put it onto another media. Where we want to move to is what we refer to as next generation data backup and recovery. Dan, if you would show that next slide. Whereas we will put 2 devices in our network, it's from a vendor called Rubrik. It's a clustered solution that's in a continuous backup mode that's backing up all of our data files, databases, everything associated with our businesses, all of them, and creating a redundancy of it. And it's a mechanism to help us to recover quickly from known threats. And the biggest threat we have these days is ransomware. In days of old, hard drive failures, server failures used to plague us, but no longer. And also in this scenario, we go to an offsite storage of our backup. And Mr. Majors and I are looking at NIU as a storage location for us. It's inexpensive. Dan, you can take that away. And we come forward often using the expression next gen. And the reason we use next generation is many of the technologies we are using today are reflective of 15 years ago. Rubrik is on the GSA list. They're used by Will County, and Lake County is in process of implementing this solution as well. What we really are attracted to with this solution is last September, September of 2019, when Baton Rouge was attacked with ransomware, they were able to recover in 48 hours using the Rubrik solution. And for us, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when ransomware happens to us. And we're anxious to put ourselves in a situation to recover Dan, would you like to add anything? Oh, excuse me. The cost of this in the first year is $140,000. It is in the budget, and it's in the portion of the it's the office automation budget for the general fund. Dan, would you like to add anything?
No, I think you got everything covered there.
Dan Fellers, did you want to?
I'll translate to English if it's necessary.
Sorry about that. I didn't mean to take control, Mr. McDonald.
No, not offended by any means. Mr. Pillars, would you like to explain? For one thing, I see the first year is 140,000. It drops to 70 every year after. That must include some hardware that we're getting started with, or why is the first year cost so significant?
It's because the first year includes the hardware and engineering. In years 2 and 3, we're operating off the same hardware. Possibly in years 4 and 5, my anticipation is in year 5 is when we do a hardware refresh.
That was my next question. Thank you. Mr. Pillars, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, Gus and Dan just brought me in the other day, wanted to discuss this with me. I think this is a really ingenious solution that Rubrik has. Number one, what I find interesting is that the boxes themselves have their own operating system. And one of the reasons why, so much of our current infrastructure is at risk for attack is that these are old boxes. Everyone knows the software that's running them, so it's real easy for hackers to get into them. Because this is basically a proprietary operating system, there's no data out there. No one can go in and hack it because it doesn't look like anything else they've ever used before, anything else that there. Likewise, with the way the storage is set up and with the continuous backup, if, for example, like the North Campus does get hit with ransomware, I guess you guys can go and pull those hard drives, pull everything out, and basically put new devices in there with all the backup data on there and completely bypass the entire ransomware attack just by getting rid of where it's located. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So I think this is a really good solution they have, and I think we should definitely give Gus and Dan and the team, kudos here for finding this.
Thank you, Mr. Fellows. State's Attorney Height Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had a question for Gus. The other areas that have used this, have they been able to secure law enforcement information, such as from the state's attorney's office or the sheriff's office?
The answer is yes. This is a contained solution that is on site, and then when we pick an off-site location to replicate to, either an NIU circumstance or a Amazon or those cloud providers, those are target hardened facilities with minimum access to data. And in the case of our data is encrypted in a manner that the only thing that can read it and use it is the Rubrik's solution. If that was helpful.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Gettner or discussion in general? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Seeing none, we'll cast a yes vote for everybody and let the record reflect. I see Ms. Rudd's on or signing in currently. Are you with us, Ms. Rudd?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, ma'am.
I'm here.
All right, terrific. The next item, F, resolution approving bond amounts for county clerk, county treasurer, and county auditor, and I so move. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Second by Ms. Crosby. The item is now before us. Mr. Thompson, are you?
Yeah, I think this is just a regular resolution that needs to be approved by the board, reviewed and approved by the board. It's for the bond amounts for elected officials. In this case, it's the clerk, the county treasurer, and the county auditor. And we've established certain dollar amounts for each of those positions. I think by state statute, state law, that the elected officials have to have a certain amount of bonded amounts. And so this is a pretty standard resolution in front of the board. So It's for those 3 elected officials. For the clerk, it's $10,000, the county treasurer, $100,000, and the county tax collector, $375,000. I think that's in $375,000. That's included as part of the county treasurers, and then the county auditor, $5,000. So I don't know if state's attorney's office wants to supplement what my comments were.
If I could, Chairman, this is, these bonds are required to be presented to the court. These will go before Judge Doherty once they're approved, and that be done on an annual basis. So we have to submit paperwork that shows and proves that these bonds are in place at the required amounts, and they'll be presented presented before the court. They'll be approved and put on record. So I believe Mr. Thompson was correct. It's a statutory requirement.
Thank you, Mr. Kurlinkus. Is there any other discussion on this item?
Yes, I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Please, Mr. Arena.
Mr. Kurlinkus or Mr. Thompson, can you give me, just so that I understand what this is about better, can you give me an example of an event that would occur where the bond would be utilized, in particular, like for the auditor or the clerk?
My understanding is that it basically is an insurance policy against certain acts that may cause, the elected official or the county to have to step in to defend actions by an elected official. But I'll defer to our excellent lawyers on this to answer that question.
Primarily, it's to ensure that if there's some sort of malfeasance in office by one of the elected office holders that's covered, that the bond would cover the amount in the amounts that are on the face value of the bond return to the county any dollar amounts that are taken improperly.
Okay, so it's in case funds are misused. I got
Yes, misused is
and
that's a nice way of saying it. Yes.
And we didn't do this for the coroner, I take it.
Well, he's an elected official, so I would defer to the state's attorney's office, but I would think that we might have a bond on the coroner's office.
It's and you can tell by looking at, now I know State Attorney Hyde Ross can address that, but if you take a look at the amounts, the amounts go up in correspondence with the amount of money being handled by the holder of that particular office. That's why the treasurer and the collector is so high at $375,000. State Attorney Hyde Ross, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was going to say that it's required by statute for every elected official. There's a bond on the state's attorney. So every elected official has one. They expire at different times because they have to be filed annually, as Mr. Kurlinkus said.
So there is one for the coroner?
Yes, there would have to be by statute.
Yep.
Pat,
Okay, so we may be able to recover some of our loss with the coroner?
Well, that's a pending prosecution, so I really don't want to comment on that right now, but certainly the purpose of the bond, as Mr. Kurlinkus indicated, is to cover certain acts of public employees while they are in office.
Okay, I understand. Thank you very much for explaining it.
You're welcome.
Ms. Johns, were you trying to get in there?
Oh, I was just going to mention, I know my position has a bond as well. And I'm not sure when mine is due because HR handles it, but I don't know, but I asked one time if the county collected on Sally, because she would have been bonded, and I thought I heard yes. But I don't know anything of the details. But there are some appointed officials that have to have bonds as well.
These are not approved. The appointed officials are not approved by the court. As the state's attorney said, the statutory requirements for elected officials set forth what the bonds are, and they do expire annually.
Thank you, Ms. Johns. Mr. Kurlinkus, are there any other questions for this resolution? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Was there anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. On to other matters. I'll just say really quickly, I apologize. There was a lack of communication on my part with Mr. Thompson. Normally we do meet at 5:30. I know a few people are a little bit late and I apologize for that. I'll be more clear in my communication in the future. Is there anything else for other matters this evening?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to go back to the first item on our agenda, and Mrs. Johns is on the call now. And there was a question. This is a 5-year contract, the initial 2 years, and then 3 one-year renewals. And the question from Mr. Arena was that in those last 3 years of the contract, if the county so chooses to opt out of the contract because of whatever reason, if the price increase is too high, or we think, that should be a reason to get out of the contract, will the agreement or contract that we sign with these 3 vendors allow for an opt-out?
Yes, that's a very good question. And yes, for example, we have a contract for gloves, not this one, but the coroner prefers different type of glove, and he can get it at a better price on Amazon Business. So he just purchases them that way and not through our glove contract. So departments do have a little bit of discretion. But what we've asked is for the businesses, these paper goods, chemical companies, to hold their pricing for 2 years. They won't really go beyond that. But the most expensive product that seems to go up is the ice melt. But yeah, no, we look at the prices we'll look at it in 2 years and then determine what we're going to do and what products are wanted, maybe some additional products. Or different size garbage bag or whatever.
And then the second question was whether or not the agreements or the contracts or whatever contractual obligation we bind Winnebago County to, will the state's attorney's office be able to review, or have they reviewed, or will they review those contracts when we execute them?
There is no contract. These are commercial businesses and we just lock in rates with them, basically.
Okay. Thank you.
Like we are, like for Home Depot, for example, we have an account there, we have a discount, but if we would have chosen them, we would have locked in these rates. So no, and if this way, all departments know that when they call to purchase chemicals, let's say, they know they're getting these discounted rates because they're loaded into these vendors' pricing into their system.
Thank you, Ann.
Sure.
Ms. Johns, are all the departments using a single source for supply chain to make sure we get our best volume discount?
Well, we get our volume discount because we tell them what we think our needs are. We try to canvass departments to say, what are your needs? And that's why for the ice melt, we like to include the city's count because that gives us a much higher quantity of ice melt that we're buying. So yes, we will notify the departments these are available. A lot of these products are what the cleaning staff use. So Sean purchased these things and they're kept in a storage area, and then the cleaning service, fills our trash bags up or uses these cleaning chemicals. And some things are for like the jail, for corrections. Some of the items are their needs. But yeah, the departments, we send them basically the bid tab with just those 3 vendors on it, so they kind of know what they can look at. And like I said, once in a while they come back and they feel like they can get it cheaper another way or a little different variety of what they want. And we do not hold them to that because you just can't hold an elected official to pricing if they feel like they can get a better price locally, or Amazon seems to be the big one.
So Ann, another way to ask the question is if the county wants to opt out of this arrangement or agreement at any point, we will have the option to do that, correct?
Oh, yes, of course, at any time. It's just a matter of when we call ProSource, we get the prices that are agreed to, and these are the most common items that are used. And like I said, we canvass the departments like facilities or River Bluff, corrections, what products they want us to look at. And yes, we can get out at any time. It's not a problem at all. We have a couple of these. They're just real common items that we want to standardize. And this was bid 5 years ago. It's worked very well. And that's why the city this time has decided to join us, because we get very good pricing this way.
Excellent. Thank you, Ann.
Is there anything else for other matters for us? Seeing none, how about a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Try to be seconded by, Mr. Bucita. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very much for your time this evening. Mr. Thompson.
Have a good evening, everyone.